All right, we're live as I crack my energy drink here in the Movewell HQ office. But happy Monday. We're recording live on a Monday. If you're watching on YouTube, listening to the audio, dropping this on a Thursday. But we're back for another episode of the Movewell podcast, and this is a topic that is a massive part of wellness because you have to have it really to be well and to feel involved. And it's just something about having community just makes your relationship stronger. It makes your mind healthier, your heart happier. And it's just a really important part of your life, but also a business. And that's something that Kevin, I've always applauded him that he's done well is building the Move All business based on community and, or at least emphasizing it at multiple times throughout the course of building Move Well, and then as it continues to grow. So today, that's what we're going to touch on. We're going to talk about building a business and sustaining a business with community, and that's something that we take very serious here at Move Well. It's probably 70% of my job is community in some way, whether it's directly with the clients that we work with at MoveWell or if it's the public, because the way MoveWell operates is where we operate business to business. So we don't do business to consumer or to the public. So being able to touch people outside of MoveWell is just as important to us. And it's always, but one thing we'll kind of dive into, but one thing what we have always talked about is we want to have this community outside of just the clients we work with, but we're like, how does it make sense? And obviously you have to think about the money, right? Like, how does it bring revenue to the business? But what we've slowly realized is it does bring revenue to the business. And it also brings attention to the business through ministry, which is obviously an important aspect, being a Christ-centered company. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And we'll talk about kind of how the vision that you have had with community has evolved. You know, when you first started the business, what did it feel like? What did it look like in your mind? And how it's kind of evolved to now. And then obviously we'll touch on the different opportunities that we give to our clients and to the public with events that we have, and just different involvement and ways they can be involved with the business. But I think first talk about, you know, when you started MoveWell in 2020, when you thought about the community around MoveWell, what vision did you have and what did you want it to look like?
Yeah. So in 2020, again, it was a one-man show. It was just me and a lot of ideas, a lot of visions. But I didn't realize how hard that is to get started. And like, you just can't just start a community. It takes time, right? Like some of those things have to happen organically, and the relationships that you build over time evolve, and then you start developing this community. I kind of wanted that right away. But one of the ways that and I don't know that I really knew why I wanted the community, to be honest with you. I just knew it was, I just felt like it was important. And I think I'd seen at my old place of work, just some simple things. Like I started working out on my lunch break and running and lifting or whatever. I was at a physical therapy clinic, so we had the resources there to do that. And just seeing how that impacted my coworkers. They started working out at lunch. They started running. A lot of them just started running. Somebody the other day called that was the Kevin effect. I can't remember who that was. But somebody said the Kevin effect, that everybody just starts running.
Oh yeah,
and stuff that I get to know. But I realized I was like, oh, okay. So there's something to this when, you take initiative, you start doing things that impacts other people, and then it becomes almost contagious. And I've always noticed that from my baseball playing days and coaching, when you have a team that has great chemistry, essentially you kind of have a community there, your team. And when the community is right, people feed off that, they push each other. And it makes the team better, but it also helps you perform better. And so really wanted to emulate that in a corporate wellness setting and creating that community. And also was looking at a lot of the neat things that were happening around me on social media and different companies like Bear Performance Nutrition. You're wearing their hoodie right now. They were doing an amazing job of creating this community and building that. And so I was seeing that. Obviously there was probably some selfish desire there too of, hey, I think it would be good for business to have a community of people, like-minded people that, I think it helps spread what we're doing a little bit better and things like that. So I had this desire for it, didn't really know how to start it, how to do it. But one of the things I quickly did was I tried to just partner with other organizations or companies that were already doing stuff. So I did a lot of outreach to people in our community. a lot of outreach to companies, and just kind of outsourced that a little bit at first. It was like, hey, I don't really have many clients, but I want to create a community. You're already doing this with your community. Could I get involved with it? Also, now we have ambassadors at companies, our clients that we work with. But I kind of had initially we just started some ambassadors just in the community,
Right.
and so we no longer have that program. But initially, I guess I was like, were you? I don't think I think I just hired you.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah.
You were a strong potential to be an ambassador. I feel like I ended up just hiring all those people
Yeah.
initially that were ambassadors. But yeah, I just was trying to create some stuff, some kind of community online. I didn't know how social media worked really. I didn't know how Instagram worked, but I created an Instagram page for Move Well. It's still the same one we have today.
Talk about when you created that Instagram page.
I was sitting.
This is a great story.
Yeah, it was I can tell you the day it happened because it was the day my daughter was born, or maybe the day after. But I was in the hospital. We were at the hospital, and again, back then I was a one-man show, so I had to have my computer with me. I didn't have anybody say, "Hey, I'm going to be off work. Can you watch emails or respond?" To I was the only person. No one else was there to do it. So I had to have my computer there, and I was, occasionally checking email and stuff to just make sure I was staying up to date with things. And I think it was a period where I don't remember if if Everly had been born yet, or it sounds so terrible to say, talk about bad work-life balance, but either way, I was in the hospital room or sitting there, and I had my laptop out. I was sitting there next to my wife, Amanda, and created the Move Well Instagram page. And I was, I had this vision of, man, one day people will be tagging Move Well in their activities and stuff like that, and feeding off each other and championing each other. Yeah, that was kind of the basis of it. I didn't, again, and I still think we're still just kind of starting to figure this stuff out, honestly, even 5 years in, but I didn't really know how it would work. I failed to realize you have to have clients for it to really work. And I didn't have clients at that point. And now that it's just kind of naturally doing its thing as we work with people. But yeah, I had a strong desire for that, a vision of that. And now that I'm a little more into this and understand wellness a little more fully, I'm realizing how important community is, just for, like you alluded to earlier, just for overall well-being and wellness. I mean, it's one of the biggest components, honestly, when you think about it. It's so important. And now I think I have a fuller grasp of that. And now we see it as, hey, we have to do this for our clients to help people be well, and also to stay in line with what our mission is.
Well, I think it's really, I think it is very easy to overcomplicate the concepts of community. Like, it has to look a certain way. And I'm really guilty of that, because a lot of times you would throw out ideas like, hey, let's do this. And sometimes it might be a little intimidating, maybe. And so it's like, well, I don't know if we can really pull that off, but you definitely want it to look and feel comfortable and put together. But I think a lot of times it's really easy to be like, well, that it's not going to look perfect, or it may not turn out perfectly or exactly how we want. But you have to be okay with that, especially in the beginning. And I think that's what our athletic clubs were in the beginning when we started doing athletic clubs, which is something we do once a month, whenever it's warmer. Typically they start like in March and run through October, depending on the weather. It's totally free and open to the public, not just our clients. And we host like a 20-minute workout, and we have people hang out. And in the beginning, in my head, I was like, well, we need to have this structure. It needs to be like this, and we need to have this, this, and this, and this. And then as we started doing it, I realized it's not that serious. If you want, I'm like, it's not that serious. People just want to come and hang out and be around other people and they want to be in a comfortable environment. You don't want it to be this big, intimidating thing, especially for when it's a free and open to the public. You want it to be inviting. And it's so easy to overcomplicate how you want it to look. And sometimes you just have to like lace up your boots and do it, And I think that's what I've had to realize. And honestly, that's what works best. And then as people start to show up, then you can evolve it, and you can realize, okay, we notice people like to hang out for a little bit after. Well, let's add something after the workout that makes them want to hang out even longer, and they feel okay to, So then that's when we start adding in, different components of our athletic club. Like, we have other businesses come and set up. We have Fleet Feet. We have Runner's Lounge that comes every time. Stack Nutrition is coming starting in 2025. And so I think, and I always reference the conversation with Tyrion Clark, who I had on the podcast months ago. Whenever he started this Boys to Men group, he had this vision of how he wanted it to look. But then throughout the process, it evolved and it changed, and he added new things and took things out. And he felt guilty about well, it's not really in line with the vision I initially had. I was like, well, maybe that's not the end vision of it. You know, sometimes you just have to get started and then you can change it as you go, and it's probably going to impact it better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it's been with the podcast for us. We've rebranded the podcast. This is the third time now, but we've just been trying to figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And just honestly just do it, because what if we just had done nothing for the last year?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so
Right.
I think that's part of the learning curve with anything, but especially with growing a community. But I think what we have found, especially since I started in December of 2022, between then and now, we've done so many different community events and just we trialed so many different things, and we've learned so much from it. What works with an ambassador program, who in the business needs to handle the ambassador program, who's the right person to do this, and that. And it's been really powerful because it's just kind of naturally, I feel like the kinks have naturally worked themselves out.
Yeah.
And along with that, we've naturally just figured out what is going to work the best and who owning it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the biggest thing that I've learned is like, it doesn't have to be this well put together, like buttoned up, know 100% what it's going to look like event. I think it's just a matter of having a community and having something for somebody to be a part of.
I agree. Yeah. And I think there's a book that keeps coming to mind, and we got it on the bookshelf in the other room, called The Art of the Start. And sometimes you just got to get started. And what really matters is paying attention to the data. And I think historically we didn't do a great job of that early on in the business. So we were doing a lot of stuff, but we wouldn't look back in the rearview mirror and say, okay, well, what did we do? What worked? What didn't? Now, what can we adjust next time? And I think if you start paying attention to the data, you start looking back in the rearview mirror and looking at the outputs of the inputs you put in, then you start making really strategic, smart adjustments. And then it starts feeling a lot easier because you kind of know what you're playing with. My wife sent me this quote Saturday. I thought this was good. It says, it's by Beth Moore, but you cannot keep doing the same thing the same way and keep expecting something different to happen. And I think that's kind of been our experience with this. And we've adjusted a lot, and sometimes you can adjust too much, you know, but I think we've just been tweaking and playing with it. And I feel like we're kind of getting to a spot that makes sense, and that where we're able to reach people better. And I think organically, as our business has grown, that's just helped. We've got more people involved. But yeah, I mean, it's so important. And I think I have this strong desire. You guys accused me of, I don't know if that was on the podcast it was one of our meetings the other day. You said you're trying to create a MoveWell cult.
Yeah.
What you said.
In a joking way, but
in a joking way.
But I will say, we say it in a joking way, but if we all came to Kevin and said, hey, we should have a MoveWell compound, I think he would do it.
Yeah, no, the reason you guys brought that up, because we were like, hey, we should just buy some land and put the office right in the middle and build houses all around it. You guys are like, you're trying to create a cult. But I've realized the other day, I do have this strong desire to create a community around me. And I was trying to figure that, and I've been looking for that for a long time. And I've been trying to figure out, well, why is that? And I think I identified it the other day, is I kind of grew up in that. I didn't grow up in a cult, but I grew up in my family being extremely close. And my aunt and uncle lived across the street from me. My grandparents were really close by. And so my cousins were like my siblings basically. And we would walk across, the street and see each other every day, or help each other. Or if we needed something, you go to the house and you get it. It was like this really close knit, tight community. And I didn't really realize it, but it was a really special thing that I grew up in. And there's obviously some that doesn't work for everybody. I mean, you could live close to family, and that could be maybe one of the worst things ever for people. But it really worked for my family. And I've been, I think, seeking that out in adulthood of like, man, we should all move to this one spot. And I realized I'm just trying to replicate the good experience I had as a child. But I always had that support system. I had family that really extended family that really supported me growing up, and my grandparents really supported me, and we just had this really tight knit community. And the other thing is, I was a homeschooler back when homeschooling wasn't very normal,
right?
And again, in Bowling Green, there was this really tight, close knit community of homeschoolers, and we all, like all the parents, they all helped each other. They watched each other's kids. We all went to church together. It was this really tight knit thing, and I think as an adult, I've been just seeking to replicate that because I had such a good experience. So I'm not trying to start a cult. I'm just trying to emulate some of the good things I had as a kid. But no, it was those people shaped me, and they helped me become who I am. And It was, even though I was doing something, my parents and I were doing something that wasn't very normal back in the 90s of homeschooling. We had each other to support each other, and it kind of normalized it, and we didn't feel alone. In fact, I felt less alone probably than maybe some people have experienced in public schools, because we had so many people there supporting each other. And it's such a powerful thing. That's why we have churches. That's why Jesus Christ established and had disciples and established the church 2,000 years ago, because he knew people need people. We're made for each other. And alone, we're not going to thrive. And we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast, but in 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General came out with a document called it was basically a national health crisis called the loneliness of isolation, the epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And they talk about the really serious health side effects, physical health side effects of being lonely and isolated. Again, that data we talked about in the last podcast, but that data was taken pre-COVID too. So I think it basically concluded in 2020. And so now that we know that's all been heightened out of COVID, and I still don't think we've really fully come out of that.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people that we talk to on a regular basis that are still struggling from the effects of COVID. They're really struggling with anxiety. There's people I know that have never really been in a crowd in the last 5 years because they're still just afraid to go back in that setting. And that's tough. I mean, that's a really, really tough place to be. And we need each other. We are made for each other. We need each other. And I think when you have an environment where people are supporting each other and the highs and lows, not just cheering each other on when we do something good, but also being there to support one another when things get hard is so important. So I think, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's what we've been trying to create here at MoveWell is, and recognizing that we're a virtual product.
Yeah.
We're a mobile app, and how do we create that same community in this virtual product, which I think we're still perfecting, still trying to learn and tweak again, and kind of micro testing things. But we also, I think, had a big shift in our business a couple years ago, where we started looking at ministry as a business sector, just like operations or organizational development. Ministry is one of our 5 business sectors. And then all of a sudden it made a lot more sense to start doing these things because, hey, this falls in line with the mission of our business, and we know it's important.
Yeah. Well, one thing that you bring up, like the social media community, and that's kind of, I mean, from a modern standpoint, when you think community, there's obviously the physical aspect, but a big part of it, honestly, is social media. I mean, even speaking from my perspective, there are a lot of people that I, initiated a friendship or a relationship with over social media, and then have gone on to meet them in person. And that is honestly, like, those people have supported me more than a lot of people I've known my entire life, in the highs and the lows. Like when I'm low, they're checking in, or, and they can relate to a lot that I do. So I think it's easy, and I think we did it too in the beginning, is like our business pretty much is a community. It's easy to downplay that because, and I think that's why we are so strongly about trying, people that are employees of these companies that pay for our services. We are like, hey, use us, like use us. And then when we finally explain to them, or like help them understand what it is we do, which is literally we are right in their pocket on their phone. We have physical therapists, dietitians, personal trainers. Like, we are there to help them and to give them advice and make them feel less guilty about any slip ups they have in their wellness journey. And we're like, hey, that's okay. Like, that is part of being human. That's what we are. And so by being there for them and being able to access us from their phone and send us a message literally at any time they want, like, that's community, because they can be like, hey, I was supposed to run my first 2-mile run ever today and I didn't get it done. And then we message back and we're like, hey, it's all right. Like, we've done that before too. Like, that doesn't mean you're never going to do it. You know, like something as simple as that is providing community for somebody. But I think that's this is the good, and you can say bad thing about our team, is we are all I think we all have such high ambitions in our personal lives that when we think community, or when we think anything, we think huge, like massive, big. But I think we do need to recognize, like, our business alone is a community for people. Like those people that, on our Friday calls, we always talk about wins that we've had personally as employees, but any clients we've been working with on our team calls. And every single week we have something. We have at least one person. I'm like, that's a win right there in itself. And then obviously, transitioning from do you have anything about that, like the business? But I think transitioning from that, we also have the Hot Rod Ultra, which is our massive, that is our big, massive community event each year. And I think, really, I think probably within the last year and a half, you alluded to, we kind of had a shift where we realized, okay, what we're doing does make sense. Then we really struggle because most of us in the company love running, and we were like, okay, the Hot Rod Ultra, it does benefit a nonprofit, which is helpful, but we're like, is this a little bit of a selfish ambition that we have of, well, this is our big community event, but like, how is it a ministry?
Spending too much time on it?
Are we spending? Yeah, exactly. Are we spending too much time on this? Is it taking away from the business? Because we don't make any money off of this. And the nonprofit we work with is a local ministry, and they serve underserved youth here in Bowling Green. They help spread the love of Jesus and educate these kids on who Jesus is and help them accept God's love. And so when you join the business group C12, I think that is when it really helped, because that's when you implemented the ministry piece into our business sector. And it was kind of like a light bulb moment, I think, for you. And then especially for me, I remember being like, oh, okay, the Hot Rod Ultra does make sense, because all the money we make off this event, all the profit we make off this event doesn't go to our business. It goes to this nonprofit, Curbside Ministries, which is essentially spreading the love of Jesus Christ. And then we were like, okay, so what we're doing, this is the ministry piece in the business. So then we were able to kind of sit back and justify it and feel okay about what it is. And throughout the process of all the money going to this nonprofit, and then in turn that impacts all the kids that they touch on a daily basis, we're also impacting all the runners and all the people that come to our events associated with the Hot Rod Ultra. So we're touching thousands of lives just from this one event.
Yeah. And then also, I think I'm excited. We've had a lot of clients participate in this. And I think this year, I think we finally figured out, okay, this cool ministry event can also benefit our business in a real tangible way, where we can tie challenges to it. Really excited about some of the conversations we're having about some potential YouTube stuff leading up to it that can engage our clients and stuff like that. So I think 2025 is a year that we're kind of putting it all together. That event used to almost just happen in isolation from MoveWell. It was just like this random thing. And then it's gotten so big, and then it was just a big time suck, because we didn't have a lot of support in the community to help us with it. So we were just doing it all. I think now we've done a great job of partnering with Crossland Community Church, partnering with Curbside Ministries, where we essentially have a board, a kind of unofficial board, I guess, of people now that volunteer their time and help. And not only the runners, but the hundreds of people that just come and help at the event too, I guess, really, when you think about it. And then also the runners that do the event, and then they go home and they tell their friends about it, and they post on social media. I mean, it was amazing this past year.
Oh, the response was wild.
And our social media was just blowing up by people finally tagging us.
The vision you had in 2020.
It was just really, really cool to see. I mean, this event started with 4 people on a square on the square in downtown Bowling Green, and just to see kind of what it became.
150 runners last year.
140, I think.
140
runners, $70,000 raised. I mean, literally probably thousands of lives touched by this, and multiple people saying it was one of the biggest things that they've done in their life. Like, it's changed their life. Like, that was pretty insane to hear. And then this year, I'm just really excited that we're tying a lot of our programming with MoveWell to it. So even our clients that are not in the area or don't even come do the race, they can participate. And we're doing a step challenge tied to it, where you can try to walk your own ultra marathon and things like that over the course of a month. And so it'll be a really, really cool event. But last year, that was the first time that I could personally feel. I know there's been a lot more of a community impact going on than I recognize. And it's one of those hard ministries is interesting. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to track. Like your effectiveness of it. And we're trying to assign, key performance indicators to all our business sectors. And that's one thing we're working hard this year, is like, okay, let's really track the impact of the Hot Rod Ultra and see, how many lives were touched from it. But last year was the first time I could really feel the impact of it. And I think all of us that were involved were just really overwhelmed by just the magnitude of that event last year. And it almost doubled in size in 1 year.
Nearly. It nearly doubled.
Nearly doubled in participants, but financially it tripled. Donors, it probably quadrupled. Just the reach of the event, I don't know, probably 10x at least. just from social media and
Well
all that kind
over,
of stuff.
yeah.
I mean, it was insane. One of the the winner of the event had a lot of followers on social media. She's amazing, Abby Murphy. And the reach that she had from that was insane. So yeah, I mean, I was overwhelmed. I think I made a post on LinkedIn. Like, I went to church. So the race finished at 8, cleaned up everything. I went to church at 11:30 that same day, and I was literally just sobbing in the pew. Like, it felt, because I was so busy doing everything, and you're just so tied up with the event that you're not really sitting back and reflecting on it or realizing what's happening in the moment. And then I sat down at church, and it was just like an overwhelming feeling of emotion.
Yeah.
Of like, oh my gosh, like this thing really turned into something, and it impacted people, and I could feel the Holy Spirit working through that. And it was really, really special. And yeah, just the stories that came out of that and the lives that it touched was like, okay, I had this thing on my heart to build community back 5 years ago. And it's like, oh wow, I can really see it happening now. And when you see God working in your life like that, and realizing really I had nothing to do with it, like nothing, I mean, all I am is just like a kind of a servant in that. And I, and I'm just one person. Like, I can't do like that event has nothing to do with me or anything. Like, it's so much bigger than that now. And realizing like I could literally have no involvement in that thing now, and it would be just as big or bigger, and that's a weird, kind of cool, but weird place to be. It's like, wow, like this thing has grown to where it's gonna be okay. It's gonna run itself, and it's already this kind of natural community of people around it now. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think what's cool about community, and especially the one with the Hot Rod Ultra, is you think about something that maybe you want to be a part of, or like, I know for me, when I first like really became a Christian, like, it's something that I was super, it was like, I could feel it. It was like filling up my body. But thankfully I have like MoveWell, and everybody here are very open Christian and are willing to have a conversation about anything. But you think about the Hot Rod Ultra is, us being the whole Hot Rod Ultra event in itself is run by Christians, and all of the money goes to helping spread God's love even more. So you think about people that have that like urge inside of them, that maybe they want to ask questions about their Christianity and spirituality, or they want to be around other people, but they usually aren't around other Christians, and they just want to like embrace and be able to just open up and just feel like, oh, like let it out and be like, okay, I'm around other people that feel the same way. Yeah. Like, imagine what that event provides for just, even if it's just one person who feels that, and running such a spiritual experience as it is. Yeah. And when you're out running for 10 to 12 hours, I've been to the point where I just start crying for no reason. And I'm like, what is going on, And so it's, imagine, like, that's why I think the Hot Rod Ultra is so special too, because it allows people to be in an environment where they're not the other 6 days a week, Like, it is such a unique experience where you can just 110% totally be yourself. And I mean, it's incredible.
And I think we've been pretty strategic about this from the beginning. It's not a church event, and it's not, we're not going to come preach to you. Although Chad Wright, the speaker last year,
Chad
did some of that, and that was great. It was fine.
Yeah, we loved it.
But that's not what this event's about. It's about, again, coming together, celebrating success and small achievements, pushing yourself to areas you didn't know, you don't know if they're possible. It's about supporting each other, and we just happen to be Christians. We've always said, we could have this the night before event at a church. There's plenty of churches that would host that, but we always said no, we don't want to do that, because for people that aren't Christians, that's kind of an intimidating thing. Just exactly. We want people to see, like, it's okay if you're not Christian. Like, God created, as Christians, we believe that God created us all in His image, and whether you believe in Him or not, that's okay. Like, we just want to come support you and love on you.
Yeah.
And that's what this event's about. And hopefully people leave saying like, man, there was something different about that group of people.
Yeah.
And then maybe they explore why. And if they don't, that's okay too. We just want that's not the purpose of the event. We just want to help people thrive and push themselves. And there's a lot of empowerment that comes from that. That's what it's about. You
Yeah.
know, and it's been really cool. And I think that's what the participants would say, even the non-Christian participants, because I would say probably the majority of the runners participate probably aren't Christians.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's fine.
Mhm.
But again, like I said, the purpose of the event is not to evangelize them and
No.
sneak. No, it's just like we just happen to be Christians that are putting on an event, and as Christians, we're going to do it this certain way, and we're
Yeah.
going to love on you the way that we feel like God's calling us to do that, and that's all we do. And yeah, and it's almost now just that event has this almost its own community outside of MoveWell.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of pulling the MoveWell family into it, and hopefully 2025 is a year that those all just culminate together as one big movement.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's been so important about the Hot Rod Ultra this past, or what's been so prominent about it this last year, is I love, like, coming on the MoveWell team, I love being able to pretty much take like the branding and community. You guys are pretty much like, do what you like, just do what you need to do.
We didn't know how to do it.
Yeah. And so you pretty much gave me free reign, or like start from scratch, essentially, of like, hey, let's just like get our brand out there. Let's just try different stuff. And that's what's been so fun about it, was I feel like last year in 2024 was the first year that something started happening that I wanted to happen, where people just start asking questions about what is MoveWell.
Yeah.
And that happens because of the Hot Rod Ultra, because of our athletic club, because of our social media, and people seeing the stuff that we're in, like the Ironman Wade did, the Pinhoti you did, like by us just putting our stuff out there and putting out the things that our team's up to, that our clients are up to, and events that we host, like, it just makes people start asking questions. And when people start asking questions, then you can say, oh yeah, MoveWell is a corporate wellness company that does XYZ, and they're like, oh yeah, oh, our company does this. We use this. Is that the same thing? It's like, oh, it's similar, but the difference is we can do it this way. And that is exactly what being able to brand is. And so then now those people, even if it's just 5 people that ask questions, they know, oh, the MoveWell Hot Rod Ultra, those are the guys those are the people that do corporate wellness that so-and-so use, and I think that is what was so special about 2024, is people just start asking questions about what do you guys even do? And because we're out in front of them. And so I think that's what's been so big for us last year.
Yeah. And we made an intentional effort last year. You and I would say probably drove most of this, of like, hey, let's start documenting stuff and putting it on YouTube. And we didn't have a great plan as far as, okay, this is going to lead to this many leads and this and that.
Yeah.
Like, we were just like, let's just put it out and let's learn from what we're doing. And I think we did a good job of tracking data, seeing what people engaged in, what they did. And I'm really excited about the stuff we've got coming up in 2025. But we just put it out there, and some of it made sense from a business standpoint. Some of it probably didn't. Some of it, I mean, we're a corporate wellness company, and there's a video of me running 100 miles. Like, what does that have to do with corporate wellness? But we just did it.
Yeah. Well, I think,
I think we learned a lot. I think, but it also, like you said, it got people asking questions. It got people talking about us, and like, wow, the CEO, the 2 owners of this company are doing Ironmans and ultra marathons. Like, what is this thing?
Yeah.
We were, I guess, a little caught or worried that it would scare people in a way. And I had some early business blunders where I think was probably a little intimidating.
You did scare people
for our clients, of like, oh my gosh, if I have to go run an ultra marathon or do this to use this product, I can't do that. I think we've done a better job now of showing, hey, you don't have to do that. You just got to start with here. And really, running 100 miles doesn't even equal wellness necessarily. No. It just means you're really fit.
Yeah.
But you did a great job of, and now we kind of have a brand, we have a look, we have a feel that now people really like, and we keep getting asked tons of requests for people to do projects. And now we're at a point I was like, okay, we got to be a little more strategic in how we're doing this. If we say yes to everything, we won't have time to do anything, which is a neat problem to have.
Yeah. Well, the stuff, the thing is, the things that we were doing in the YouTube videos we were doing, all we were really showing through that was who we are.
Yes.
And I think it's important to, when you think of a business, it makes you more invest. I mean, I think that is one thing. I mean, Nick Bare is like one of the few people who has, when people see BPN and they know who Nick Bare is, they know who he is, because people feel invested in his story and the things that he's done. And honestly, it establishes relevance to him, and it gives him an almost, I'm trying to think of the right word here. Like, it gives him
credibility.
That's what I'm looking for. It gives him credibility, and people are like, well, heck yeah, I'm going to trust his
Yeah.
company, his supplements, because look what he's done. Look at the
Right.
things he's done. And we don't do that egotistically. Like, we like to run ultras because we like to run ultras. Wade likes to do Ironmans because he likes to do Ironmans and push himself. But I think what that does is it does establish credibility. And when people see the things that, oh, the owners of MoveWell have done this and this, like, they've done hard stuff. They know what it means to go through something that's challenging.
Yeah.
Therefore, I trust them. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's what we want to show people. We're not doing it to intimidate them or whatever. Like, we're not going to, and that would be, honestly, that would be discrediting ourselves to not showcase the things that we're up to and not want people to know. I don't want them to know I've run 100 miles because I don't want them to be scared. It's like, well, if they're scared by it, then they're scared by it.
Yeah.
But also, you know, I think it's finding a fine line.
Well, I think what you did a good
comfortable.
job with in those videos in those series on YouTube last year was one, showcasing the why behind all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, sharing the story. You know, so if it was just, hey, here's me going to run 100 miles, or Wade, here's me going out and doing this Ironman, like, okay, maybe that could come off-putting or intimidating or seem like we're bragging, but we showcase the vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
How do we balance this with family? Man, I'm really struggling with this. Like, I think there was a level of vulnerability in all those projects. And I really think Wade's really showcased that.
Yeah.
We did like 12 of them.
Yeah, we had so much time leading up.
You know, me and Wade were in an airport in New Orleans, you know, and he's filming everything, you know, and we had our kids with us and showing all that. And so I think it was, those projects were very relatable because we are in a stage of life that's very relatable to most of our clients.
Yeah.
You know? I'm 37 years old. I have 4 kids. I have a wife. I have work. I have church. I have bills to pay. I have all the stresses that everybody else is having.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you did a great job of showing that in the videos. And I think then it's much more relatable if you understand the full scope of the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
So
well, I think when it comes to the branding community, I think that just shows that it's hand in hand, because after we started, especially Wade's Ironman series, because we did that first, and there were so many videos. And I also preface, like, there's algorithm experts when it comes to social media, and like, the best time to post is this day. Here's like keywords and things like that. And some of that stuff is true, but sometimes you just have to make something that's fun to watch, and you have to put stuff out that is real. Because I don't want, like, I know me personally, I don't want to watch a video that only shows somebody crushing a race and that's it. You know, like, I'll watch it one time, but if I'm going to watch a series of videos, you want to see somebody that was going to get up at 5 a.m., but they didn't get it. They had to wait and they had to work out that night. Like, there was a lot of that in Wade's series. Yeah. But I think what is cool about the branding and community part of social media is whenever you start getting messages of people that actually watch it. Like, Wade got a lot of that. Wade's from a really small town, and there were people like in his gym, because we were sharing it on Facebook and Instagram, and Wade was also sharing it. And they're like, hey, I watched your video of your Ironman series. And when you start seeing some of that, then you're like, okay, now it's making sense, because this public community that we're building of just showcasing what we're doing on social media is now tying into the MoveWell brand, because they associate Wade with MoveWell. He owns MoveWell, and they see that MoveWell is putting all of this content out. And that's when it really starts making sense. Yeah. And that's what we struggled with in the beginning, was like, well, if nobody's seeing it, then does it make sense to waste energy doing this? And it's like, who cares? Like, you know, like, you get to a point where it's like, it's fun to do it. It's fun to share it. And when people do eventually see it, we're going to have some credibility. When, you know, one day MoveWell is servicing millions of people, which we will be, they're going to go back on our YouTube channel and see that 3 years ago we were doing Ironmans already, and, you know, all this stuff.
Yeah. You know, there was a person that watched Wade's video that Wade didn't even know, and they reached out to them and said they've signed up for an Ironman now because of Wade's video. There's an individual that did my race, the race that I did, and now we talk all the time. You know, and he's trying to get me to go out to Oregon and do a race with him, and it's just like, wow, if we wouldn't, and you know, I'm really happy to have met that person. There's been several people just that we've come in contact through the videos, and they're not like, these videos don't have millions of views or anything like that. I mean, I'm excited about one day when we get it on a bigger scale, and I think the only way we're going to get there is just keep putting it out. You know, putting it out and putting good content out. And I've really enjoyed, you know, in 2024, my really big push of myself was to speak publicly, and I worked really hard at getting myself out there, creating, kind of understanding how that all worked. Like, how do I even get speaking gigs? How do I develop a talk and kind of have a thing and this and that. And, you know, what I did, honestly, is I just started sharing everything, sharing my vulnerability, like
Yeah.
having a theme that my talk's about, but really just showcasing me and where my failings have been, and where they continue to be, and where I've learned and where I've grown, and it's the response from them were really, really positive, and everybody's response was, I just appreciate that you're real and that you share that side of you, and show that. And I'm like, if we're going to create a community of people that are seeking to grow and to be well, and hopefully impact other people in the same way, we've got to share the highs and the lows, and we've got to be vulnerable and show all that stuff. And I tell you, like this morning, just speaking about vulnerability, like I did a little check-in on my Exodus 90 app that we were talking about last podcast, and I was like, I'm not doing good today. Like I'll be honest, like I what did I put? I just feel really overwhelmed. Like I feel very overwhelmed. I feel like I can't get ahead today. And that's a normal thing to feel. And for me to say, oh, we're this wellness company, we're always happy, we're always joyful. It's not the case. It's not like anything bad has happened. I'm just trying to see what I put, but yeah, I was just like, I just feel a little overwhelmed. That's basically what I put. I feel stressed, overwhelmed. I feel like I want to give in to my insecurities, and that's okay. Like, that's okay. I think the important part is being honest with yourself and acknowledging that, and not being afraid to tell other people that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't build a community on just fake social media posts, and fake, whatever feelings. Like, no, you build a community by sharing yourself with each other. And for me, that's been one of the most important things in my life, and I think that I began to see that even more fully in 2024. I started meeting with a spiritual director monthly and just being honest with what I've been going through and my feelings, and we really were just intentional about building a good community of friends for my wife and I, but also our children and people that we can share the highs and lows with. And I tell you what, like, we have such a strong little tiny close knit community now from that, and it's probably been one of the most helpful things from a wellness standpoint that we've had in our lives. I see Move Well that way. I mean, I see all of you all like that. I think we're pretty open with everything in the business and share the highs and lows together. And I really appreciated. We did my 360 review on Friday, and so this is the third year I've done this, where basically all the employees review me, and so you all answered questions about what I was doing well, but what I was not doing well, how I was leading the business, what would you do differently, and I didn't see the answers beforehand, so Wade, our CEO, my business partner, sent out the questions in advance to everybody. And then the first time I heard and saw these was on our meeting, and it's a little intimidating and scary. But I really enjoyed it, and there were some things I need to work on from that. And that's okay, but I feel that you all do I feel like I've got a community and our employees and our coworkers, that really helps me grow. And any of the negative stuff you all said wasn't to make me feel bad or shame me. It was because you cared about me. You wanted to help me, and you care about this business because you all want this business to succeed. And this year in 2025, Wade and I have really, I think, tried to be more transparent on everything with the business and sharing a lot with everybody. And it feels a little weird, honestly, sharing financials with people and sharing. I mean, pretty much you all know everything that's going on in the business.
Pulse on everything.
Very, very transparent. And I think what's come as a result of that, I think we've just become more close knit as a company. It's been really neat. And I think that goes back to, if we want to have real, lasting, strong community, we got to be vulnerable with each other. Not saying you have to share every little thing in your life, but if you feel like it's something you need to share, you need to share it. If God prompts you or puts something on your heart, you need to do that. We can't build a community of trust if we just act like everything's perfect all the time. And that's okay.
Well, I think that's what the saying that progress isn't always linear is so true. When you look at a chart of true growth, it's kind of like burnout. You look at a chart of positive growth, it's going to go up, and then it's going to kind of lag down a little. It's got to kind of go up and down, up, down, up, down. But then over time, you see the trend is that it's gone up. Whereas if you look at, a lot of times it's like, if you set a fitness goal, you look at it and it's like, you go really hard in the beginning, and it's just like 2 weeks straight of hitting all your goals, like boom. And then there's a giant crash, but then it just kind of goes like up a little, then it's down. And the trend is the opposite, as if you have like balance, And so I think being able to have that is important. And I think being able to do that is to be open and vulnerable and share
Yeah.
with somebody or a community,
Yeah.
and you think about when you feel a certain way. I am so thankful for my wife, because she is if I'm feeling, she can something about whenever, if I walk into a room, like she can tell based on my body language within 30 seconds if
Yeah.
I'm feeling funky or whatever. And that's our word we always say is like, I'm just kind of in a funk.
Yeah.
And being able to vocalize it for like, if we have 30 seconds in passing and I'm like, I feel in a funk, I feel like I didn't get anything done today on my to-do list or whatever it is, instantaneously, like I'm feeling a little bit of relief because I vocalized it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think, you don't have to overshare. And everybody knows those people that just overshare on social media or whatever, like every little detail in their life. That's not what we're talking about. It's not like, you gotta share all your gossip or all this or post this or that. Like, no, it's just, but like,
the things that,
you just need to be real, man. Like just be real. And I think when you do that, what we have found is our clients buy in more.
Yeah.
I realize from speaking publicly, that's people really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it seems like a weird thing. I'm coming up as this wellness expert to talk, and then I'm also saying I have issues in this area of wellness. There's some insecurity there of like, well, I've got to be this expert, but nobody's perfect. And what matters really is that we're seeking. And I think we talked about that last week a little bit, but like, where I think I have discovered is like, okay, I don't have to be an expert at wellness. I just have to be seeking. And acknowledging when I mess up. And then from there, okay, what am I going to do different this next time? And just owning it. And I think from a business standpoint, and I think, being a little bit more new in business, it's early on, especially I felt insecure to share some financials and stuff with our team. And now I think it's like, hey team, we messed up on this decision. Like, it lost us money.
Yeah.
But I just want you all to know this, but what can we do as a group to make sure it doesn't happen? And how can we do better next time? And how can you help me succeed? And then I think that just brings because everybody wants to be a part of something. And everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than them. And you've got to have a really good defined why. And I think we've done a great job with that as a company, as an organization. And we definitely run our business and live by that why.
100%.
Yeah, there's no doubt in that. And one of the things that I was told from some business consultants was, there's some stuff you got to learn in this area, but you are very clear on what your why is. And just lean into that. And I think for all of us in a group, a community, we all have different unique gifts and talents, and you need to lean into those and utilize those for your group or your community. And that's going to help the whole community thrive and do better.
Well, I think everyone appreciates a little shock factor. And by that, I mean just something different. I think people, it's so easy to go through the motions of, I'll use the example of social media, of like following the same type of people that do the same thing. They make the same type of post every week. They do the same workouts every day. And that's all you see. But then you have someone who comes on and they make a post and you read it and you're like, whoa, I did not expect that from that person. Or, or they share something that was a part of their journey that maybe they're sharing later on. But they still talk about it. And I think from a business standpoint, what you're referring to is you all do, I wouldn't really say overshare, maybe because I'm used to it at this point, but compared to other companies I've worked for, you all do overshare. And I feel like we have a pulse on 98% of the same things that you all have a pulse on. Like you share 98% of probably the business stuff that's going on with every single employee from part-time to full-time. But I think what that does develop is it develops trust, because honestly, as humans, I think most people, I know I'm speaking for probably everybody in our company, when you feel a little bit of vulnerability, it makes you hungrier, right? And when you're like, okay, I know there's a chance where like, if I don't do my part, it's not going to work. And I think that builds a community of its own. I think that's why everybody gets so invested. Like when you work for MoveWell or they see what we're doing, I think that's why people ask like, hey, are you guys hiring? Because they see the stuff we're doing and we're putting out and they're like, these guys and girls are doing crazy stuff. And I think that also you all translate that to MoveWell as a business for employees. We have our Friday meetings. You're going over potential sales that we have. Like, hey, here's where we're at on this person. Like we've had 6 meetings with this company and we may or may not get them. Or, hey, we've had conversations too where you guys are like, hey, we might lose this contract, just a heads up, but we're all right. And we're going to blah, blah, blah to fix it. And I think that just provides a sense of shock factor for people where they're like, whoa, like the fact that you're sharing this with me. And I think that also is the same thing with social media and with other clients too. When we talk about things or we do things that makes people feel a little uncomfortable or like, it just takes them back and makes them want to ask more questions. It makes them want to be more involved. And I think in turn, it develops a little bit more sense of trust too.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. I think it's so powerful. And that's one thing I love about working here is our community is different than other communities. It's not like that. It's not soft, like we do, honestly, like we do stuff that's like, it's different, and it makes it cool. Like we're not afraid to talk about things that maybe is uncomfortable for other people, especially from a business standpoint. Like we do things way more radical, if you want to call it that,
One of our pillars of our company are Christ-centered, relationship-driven, or actually I've got it out of order. Christ-centered, growth-oriented, relationship-driven, family-aligned.
Yeah.
But early on, when I was trying to understand pillars and all that kind of stuff, it was what was it? We had something about that.
I don't even.
It was unconventional.
Unconventional.
Unconventional. And at some point, we realized, you know what? We don't even need to put that in our pillar.
People are gonna know.
Really, those 4 pillars I listed are pretty unconventional, anyways.
Mm.
We don't need to try to be unconventional. We're just unconventional.
Yeah.
It's just the way we are. It's going to stay that way.
Yeah.
And so we slimmed it down even more, but we do things very differently.
Yeah.
I think early on, I probably tried to do things so differently that it was almost like overboard. Probably there was back in the day, it was like if we didn't hit certain goals every week, you had to do 100 burpees.
Oh gosh, I did not know that.
That was pre your time. Stuff that just like, hey, as a business grows and scales, that's not like a fair ask.
Yeah.
But no, I think I think what you're alluding to is we've done a pretty good job of not shying away from the hard conversations with each other because we do care about each other. And it's not always easy to do that. Wade talked about last week on the podcast, the Buffalo culture that C12, the business group we're part of, has. That essentially when there's a storm, buffaloes on the prairie, they don't run from the storm. They come together as a group and they get huddled up and then they run directly into the storm so they can get through the storm faster. And I think that's a concept that we've pretty much always kind of had with this business, but I think it's gotten stronger lately as I just become a little bit more aware of how that works and everything. And I think that's how, again, it goes back to, we're our small community here of 5 full-time employees, 5 part-time employees, 10 total. But also, that's even communities on a bigger scale. That should be the goal, is like when things get hard, that's when we come together. We tackle these things head on. We don't run from it as a group,
Yeah.
And again, and I think that's what the Hot Rod Ultra really is. It's people coming together to really challenge themselves mentally and physically, and helping each other get through it together. And so there's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of stuff that comes from that when you're like in the trenches together and you make it through together. And I think that's why that race has become that's why people keep coming back. That's why people, are coming from Europe year after year to do it. That's why people are coming from Canada. That's why people are coming from 16 different states. And most of our racers, I would love to see, they don't come back every year, but I say the majority of our racers always come back. So we've done it. This will be our 5th year. I'd say that'd be an interesting stat to look at. How many of the racers have done it more than once?
Yeah.
And I bet it's like 80%.
Oh yeah. A lot.
Maybe 90%. Yeah. It's pretty shocking probably.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why to kind of wrap up, I think that's why we love, I love doing the Hot Rod Ultra, but love having like a community outside of our clients too, because it almost honestly, every September, it's such a refreshing thing to be around hundreds of other people that get it, that just get it. And I think
these are not like elite athletes.
No.
Some people, like one person that's going to do it this year has never even walked a 5K.
Yeah.
So
but
they get it from a standpoint of like, I'm not going to settle. I'm going to seek. I'm going to see what's possible. I'm going to push myself.
Yeah, they get like the unconventional, the radical thinking of like, I'm going to do it, And I think these are the people that they don't just like the idea of it. They like the idea of finishing it, and they're going to finish it, and they're going to get uncomfortable. I think that's why we love it so much too. And, just throughout the process, it really does tie into our ministry piece. So and I think last year, especially, we were like, okay, we're up to something here.
Yeah.
And it really allows us to justify it within the business. It allows us to reach more people, and it allows us to give people the opportunity to try something that makes them that scares them, but also throughout the process. I doubt there's been anybody that's come to the event that did it and they were like, I wish I would have never done that.
Yeah.
You know, like if so, handful of people, because
maybe.
Maybe. And it's just it'll test your character, but it'll develop your character. And it's so much fun.
We have had people say like afterwards, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could do that again. But then usually a week later,
after a week, they're signed up. Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think that's just it's cool to, and I hope that, you know, listening to this, people can resonate a little bit, and they probably feel in the same place in terms of, you know, I want to build this community, but I don't know if it makes sense. Like, just try it.
Just start.
Just
start.
start
And that's why
it.
we do this podcast.
Yeah.
Honestly. And we're sharing a lot of our vulnerabilities and weaknesses here. So we just want to give an outlet for people to connect with us, and hopefully you feel that from the podcast. And that's why we're doing it. You know?
Yeah.
That's why we've rebranded a few times, just trying to figure out the best way to build that community and reach people. But yeah.
Yeah. So if you all want to check out all the stuff we're up to, we pretty much share any and everything that we've done on social media. So Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn is all Movewell, MUUVWELL, and on YouTube as well. And if you want to check out more info on the Hot Rod Ultra, which is, again, that's our biggest community event that we do every single year that we are obsessed with. It's never going away. Just go to hotrodultra.com. You can sign up. You can just learn more about it there. And if you want, we have a video on our YouTube channel that kind of showcases what the event was like last year, which was our biggest year yet, like 140 something runners, over $70,000 raised from that race. So that's on our YouTube channel. Be at hotrodultra.com to check out, learn more, and then Movewell on all social platforms. Thanks for checking in and listening. Catch you next time.